Do you get lower back pain while you deadlift or potentially after you deadlift? It's a common question that I get asked. It's a common thing when I'm working with people that I work on. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore some pain experiences that I've come across, and then we're going to start talking about some of the ideas that we may put together for those people to be able to help them either reduce their pain or even eliminate their pain. If you're suffering with this type of back pain and you want a little bit of extra help, just click the link below this video and you'll go through to my How to Overcome Lower Back Pain consultation and coaching page. Enter your details, I'll send you 2 questionnaires. I'll also get you set up on the online assessment where we look at the hips, we look at the core, and we look at the lower back. What we're then able to do is take that data, I'll read through it, we'll come together in the consultation, we'll talk further about it, dig a little bit deeper into it, and then what will happen off the back of that is I'll then be able to put together the beginnings of a rehab program, which we can then implement over the period of 2 weeks to help you understand what you need to do, how you need to do it, and when you need to do it. So there's 2 pain experiences that I come across the most. One is where pain goes down the legs, and one is where pain is concentrated at the lower back. We're going to start with pain going down the legs, then we're going to look at pain concentrated in the lower back. But as I mentioned, this isn't about trying to diagnose your specific lower back pain. It's very much more just education that you can learn from to understand your deadlift a little bit better, your low back a little bit better, and how you can go about possibly modifying anything that you potentially could be doing wrong. Pain experience number 1 is where the pain goes down the legs. It could be coming from 2 places. It could be coming from the spine itself. It could be coming from the hips in the form of trigger points in specific muscles. So we're going to start with pain in the lower back. So what can be happening here with regards to the pain in the lower back? So it could be coming from a disc. So if we go into this position and I round my spine, the disc could be irritating the nerve. Or if I come up here and I go into extension, it could be coming from where the nerve comes out of the spine, goes through a little hole. Now when I go into extension, it just closes that hole a little bit, and that could be irritating the nerve. So when it comes to modifying the deadlift, because it doesn't mean you have to stop deadlifting, because as I've mentioned, it could just be a simple modification to the technique, and either the pain reduces or it completely eliminates it. Which leads me to sort of what would, I guess you would call part number 1, which is posture of the spine. So as I've mentioned, if we go here, it could be flexion that's causing it and the disc irritating. If we go here, it's extension that's irritating it. So it could be either one of the 2. It could be both. So all we need to do is improve the posture of the spine, so maintain that neutral position, which is, there is a range to it, so we have to understand that. But as long as it's not excessive, then we're going to be in a much more effective position. So a nice easy way of understanding that is just by putting the back of your hand, spread your thumb and your fingers apart, pop it on your lower back. What you'll understand is if your back starts to move under your hand, you know the spine is moving and it's either flexing or extending. So basically, we would go back, down, in, and I'm good here, so I can get down and I can lift up. So I know now, down into flexion and up into extension, I'm maintaining that neutral posture, which is what I want. So this is, in a sense, the most fundamental part, because the second part is just very simply lift the weights up. So I could lift this higher, obviously I could take it lower and just put them on the floor. But what it allows me to do, if I'm finding that I'm not being able to get down so far because my spine's bending, I can just raise the weight. Doesn't mean I have to change the weight, doesn't mean I have to go lighter, it just means I need to raise it up. And I just come down in, I can hold that posture, and I could stand tall. And then again, I come back down. So it could be that I just need to lift the weight up. The final one, number 3, is it could be I just need to lower the weight slightly. So I could keep the weight on the floor, it's just more the compression around the spine and the load on the spine because of the muscle tension that's causing the problem. So it could be that I just need to keep the weight where it is, I've got the range of movement, but I just need to lighten the weight, lighten the load, and allow my back some time out to be able to heal and recover itself. If the pain going down the legs is coming from the hips, then again, we need to try and understand that. So what we would do is you would test the hip range of movement. So what sort of hip range of movement do you have? And then we would go about rolling it. What we can also do is just palpate glute medius, glute minimus to see if there's any sensitivity there. Now that doesn't mean it's only coming from the hips, because there could be some irritation at the spine and then the residual tightness is going into the hips. But if we can relax the muscles of the hip, that can relax the load on the lower back. So again, it's not necessarily all or none, either lower back or hips. It could be they're working together, or they're both working against you. So if you can get them both working together, that's going to help relieve your pain. So what that basically means is when I do the online consultation and coaching, one of the assessments are the hips. So we assess the trigger points of the muscles around the hip. So we go into glute medius, we go into glute minimus. We test the sensitivity, or you test the sensitivity guided by my online videos. So you test that. That will help us understand whether there are any hip trigger points. Again, as I mentioned, it doesn't mean it's going to solve all the problem. It could, but it might solve half the problem or 3/4 of the problem, so on and so forth. But if we can get some improvement, we can then start to understand where the problem's coming from. What we also obviously need to test is the hip range of movement. If you're very tight through the hips in external and internal rotation, the muscles are very stiff, so there could be highly likelihood of some trigger points which could be sending the pain down the legs. So we have to understand all these different variables before we can start putting a program together. But when it comes to foam rolling, all we would do is very simply just get down on a foam roller. We understand where the trigger points are in the hip, so we would just start massaging them just to try and relax the muscle or relax the trigger point to be able to minimize the pain that's happening. If you've just got stiff hips, this can go about massaging it and just opening them out so they can move a little bit better and take some pressure off the spine. So that would be if the pain is coming from the hips. Part 2, if the pain is being concentrated in the lower part of the back. Now again, this could be due to 2 reasons. It could be the facet joints. So if we've got the vertebra one on top of the other, we've got spinous processes, the knobbly bits at the back, they sort of sit on top of each other like that and they glide. Now if we go into too much extension, like that, we can put some excessive pressure down through them, which can start to inflame them and it can start to irritate them. It doesn't have to be huge amounts of pain, but it may just be little bits and you're kind of aware that it's there. So the main thing with that, if we are coming up, down into position and we're coming up and we're extending, again, the easiest modification to make is to not do that and to maintain that spine posture. So as we go down, we then stop here. So we block with the abdominals and the glutes and we just stand tall. We come down and we come up. Again, by maintaining that neutral posture, we maintain the load going through those spinous processes. So again, it doesn't then become too excessive. And what that allows us to do is, again, in a sense, either reduce or eliminate that trigger, which allows the healing process to happen in and of itself. And then we may put some other wraparound therapies in place to be able to mitigate that further. The second thing that it could be is just instability through the spine. So it could be some instability through the hip, which is causing instability into the spine, or it could be instability through the spine in and of itself. So what we need to do there is a couple of things. If it's from the spine, we would brace the abdominals. So we would hold abdominals, obliques. What that will basically do, that will, like guy wires on a tent, that will hold it firm from the sides, from the front, from the back. That will hold your spine in place. So we may need to do this consciously and actively. So we would come down, grab onto our weight and stand up tall. And we're just using that brace. Now, if it's instability through the hip, the muscles of the hips, glute medius, glute minimus, aren't necessarily doing all of their job. So what we can do is, if I just take one of them, what we can do to get those muscles working properly and more effectively is either push the feet outward or external rotate the knees, or we could do both. And then we do that movement. So it's very much, it's getting, for instability, it's consciously activating these muscles, because what a lot of people will do, if the weight gets too heavy, they can't concentrate on all of this stuff going on. So we need to get the hips working, we need to get the muscles of the hip working, the muscles of the spine working, to be able to hold all that place stable, so we can then go about lifting, which then isn't going to cause us either any problems or as many problems. So it's very much, number one is understanding the problem and what's causing the pain to be triggered. Then we can start putting together some sort of logical plan that can help minimize that and then eventually eliminate it. If you are experiencing any of these types of pain and any of this has possibly resonated with you, just click the link below, go through to my How to Overcome Lower Back Pain consultation and coaching, and then what we'll do, we'll get you set up and we'll get you booked in, and then we will get you on the road to recovery with the rehabilitation plan. So yes, please do click the link below, get yourself signed up today.